Traditionally, gamers have a lot of choices to make when fall rolls around as publishers hurry to get their new titles out before Christmas. But this year, things are a little bit different. To talk about how things are looking and what games maybe you should be looking for in the fall, we bring in Chris Grant from Joystick. Chris, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Randall.
So before we were talking about what's going on before the show, and you had mentioned to me that this year is kind of different because people are a little bit more scared to release games, or the landscape's just looking a little bit different than past years. What's going on here?
Yeah, so most years, your Q4 season, which is October through December, holiday season, is really jam-packed. All the publishers are putting out the big AAA games there when they get the biggest chance of the largest day one opening day sales. This year, things are wrapping up a little differently. In the past couple of years, some publishers have pushed things off to Q1, January, February. Capcom, notably, has been doing this with a lot of its biggest franchises. This year was Resident Evil 5 and Street Fighter 4. So this year, we've heard about a lot of the delays, and some of those delays could be due to polish, some are due to strategy, and some are due to just not being done or ready.
Yeah.
And so we're hearing about pretty much every major publisher is pushing major games back into 2010, or they had already, part of their strategy was to split up their release calendar and already put more games into 2010.
So let's talk about some of the highlights. Now, the one game I want to talk about that I've actually been the most excited about is this game called Scribblenauts. Now, I heard about it actually from you when we were at lunch, ironically, a couple months back. And can you kind of explain the premise of Scribblenauts and what it is?
Yeah, so Scribblenauts, as best as I know, is still coming out this year in September. They just had a Comic-Con and was a big hit there. It was kind of unsung at E3. It's a DS game by a developer called Fifth Cell. It's being published by Warner Brothers. Basically, the idea, it's very humble looking.
Yeah, it just looks like, it looks like a game that maybe, we'd play on Super Nintendo or something like that growing up.
Maybe even simpler than that. It looks like scribbles. It looks like hand animation. Except anything you write into the box on the screen appears in the world. And when I say anything, we literally tried to stump this thing. We were throwing anything. I put stanchion in to see if it knew what a stanchion was, and sure enough, it did. It popped out a little pillar.
The little thing from a nightclub, right? And you could use it to. Can you? So in a case the game is built around puzzles where you have to figure out how to beat a puzzle and different things. Mm-hmm. And so if you write in stanchion and this nightclub rope pops down, can you use it to attack enemies, or what happens then?
You can use it to block enemies from coming. Here's an example of one of the puzzles. We have to protect this little girl from zombies that are trying to attack her. So one of our writers, Ludwig Kitzman, decided that he would go back in time before they became zombies. So he made a time machine, wrote time machine pops up. He walked into the time machine, went back in time. Unfortunately, the girl was gone, the zombies were gone, and he was in prehistoric times, and a dinosaur comes out of the side. So he writes robot dinosaur, and it plops a robot dinosaur down, and he jumps on that and starts fighting the real dinosaur.
Wow.
And of course, he didn't beat the puzzle, but that's hardly the point when you just went back in time and fought a robot.
Yeah, so the whole game is built on this idea of creative concepts, creative imaginations, just creative ways to solve problems. It's kind of unique. What are some other games that you're looking out for that kind of are on your radar, maybe for more traditional consoles like the Wii, the Xbox 360, or the PS3?
This year for PS3, this was the game of the show at E3 this year. Uncharted II, the follow-up to Naughty Dog's early PS3 title.
Yeah. When the PS3 came out, everyone just basically said the only game to play is Uncharted. And so Uncharted 2 is supposed to be this new game. Can you explain the premise behind it?
You play as Nathan Drake. You are a treasure hunter, I guess, going after the next big thing. A lot of the plot is a big draw to the game. The first game basically was the closest thing to an action movie I've ever played in a video game.
Yeah.
And the sequel looks to really follow up on that. The trailer is, amazing.
Have you played that yet? Have you gotten your hands on that yet?
Yeah, the multiplayer beta was active a little while ago. They added a new multiplayer mode in that, which, for a game that had so much focus on its single-player story-driven campaign, the multiplayer is very impressive.
Interesting. Really quick, we're running out of time, maybe one more title, one of your other top fall titles to be checking out for?
EA is releasing Brutal Legend under their EA Partners label. So they're publishing it for the developer, who is Double Fine. The game has a kind of storied development history. Double Fine is led by Tim Schafer, who did Grim Fandango.
It's a really, for big nerds, everyone remembers Grim Fandango as this really fun adventure game. This kind of stories and all these different things.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate release at the tail end of adventure games. I mean, it didn't do very well. Then he made Psychonauts for Majesco. Majesco basically went out of business publishing Psychonauts and Advent Rising, a much beloved game that really flopped at retail.
Yeah, so he's kind of this, he's a gamer's game creator. He creates these really interesting things. What's this one all about?
So Brutal Legend is starring Jack Black, and it kind of pairs up with Tim Schafer's sense of humor perfectly. It's an action game, kind of open world. You play a roadie named Eddie Riggs in a kind of mythical world that's kind of sculpted on a lot of the basic foundations of metal.
Cool.
So it's very quirky, very strange.
So Jack Black
funny.
plus crazy game developer who gamers like, plus metal music equals kind of maybe awesome. I don't know. Usually when stars come to games, it's a problem, and usually the stars detract from the game. I mean, have you played this, and are you expecting that to be one of the cases?
No, I mean, I think for the most part, Jack Black and Tim Schafer share a kind of common sensibility. I think the two, they've been doing these short videos. I think it's mostly the two of them just messing around. And Jack Black's also a gamer, so I think he also kind of knows, and he knows who Tim Schafer is, and it's exciting for him to work on a game with Tim Schafer.
Cool.
But the thing is, the game's legitimately funny. There aren't a lot of games that I've ever played in my life, short of the old LucasArts adventure games, but they were really narratively oriented. They weren't action games like this. But this game's legitimately funny. There's scenes that will have you laughing out loud.
That's cool. So that's, what's that called again? Brutal Legend?
Brutal Legend.
Cool. So we'll have links to that over at TechV. You can check that out. Chris Grant from Joystick, thanks for being with us. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Randall.
And I'm Randall Bennett, and we'll see you next time. Don't forget, you can subscribe to us on iTunes and YouTube and lots of other places, so check us out. Even Zune now. See ya.